This is a short summary of week 2 of Patrick Lecture 227, Change from Outer to Inner Laws. And I clustered a number of smaller topics under the title Spiritual Growth and Development. And these are there's a list of subtopics that were clustered. One is that the laws that pertain to individual growth pertain to planetary growth. They are the same. So that in an individual's life, there can be a surge at some point of positive energies that breaks through and allows for growth and development. Now, from the outside or the inside, that can look like crisis. It can look very scary. It's chaotic. It's unknown. The definition of unknown is you don't know. You can't plan for it. So that as the new is coming forward, you may not know all the details. You may not know the precise layout of how things are going to look after the dust settles. Same thing with planetary growth. There's an upsurge in civilization sometimes, a civilized revolution, new ideas, new concepts, new ways of being that happen as if we're all connected, because we are. And it happens in many places all at once, and it happens quite quickly when there's no blockage. Now, the second subject brought into this section is that if there is blockage and there is a force, a movement, a momentum of internal life force, and my joke about life force is never stand in the way of life force, it'll just run you over, then it's going to eventually burst through that blockage. If it doesn't burst through that blockage, it will find other outlets which may not be as constructive as the original intent might have been. So the quote from Patrick Lecture 183, which is the spiritual meaning of crisis, is that crisis corrects the frozen state. Now, the tricky part is that a frozen state may not look frozen. So I go back to the lecture, Patrick Lecture 55, on expansion, contraction, and stasis as 3 cosmic principles. The idea is you cannot expand forever. That's a frozen state. There needs to be a literal breathing, an expansion, a contraction, and various points of stasis, the turnaround point, a pause, a relaxation on a plane of development before the shift occurs. This happens in so many aspects of life on this planet. It is illustrated to us by so many things, by our very breath, by the tides of the ocean, by the seasons. Almost anything that you can name that is organic, meaning it is something we can see movement in. So crystals have consciousness, and rocks have consciousness, but you can't necessarily see it develop. But a plant or an animal, you can see grow and develop, and it goes through the stages of living, which includes dying or dying off. So whether it actually dies or whether it retreats, contracts significantly, like growth will die off during the winter, and then the root system is there, so it comes back again. No matter what this looks like or what particular flavor it has, the incidents are everywhere, and I invite you to find what you have an affinity for. One of the things that I like using is what is available to all of us, and that is our breathing pattern. And one of my favorites is my realization in a class I took that everyone's breathing pattern is unique, that we have little hesitation, we have a rhythm, we have a music to our breathing that is not the same as our neighbor, even if we're exhaling and inhaling in so-called synchronization. It's close, but it's not precise. In a previous video, I have talked about this. I will repeat it. There's an exercise where you sit with someone with your hands on their back, and you mimic their breathing. The idea is to try to do that for 5 minutes. Most people can't. About the 3-minute mark, they feel like they're drowning, they're suffocating. That's how personal our own internal breathing pattern is. Well, the planet has a breathing pattern. The oceans, the rock mantles, the global, the astrophysics and all that. If there's a breathing pattern, sometimes it's so large we can't see it. So we use what we can see. All that to talk about the fact that when something won't move, crisis occurs to move through it. And if the blockage won't move, the life force will go elsewhere. I think of life force like water. It will find a place. You can't stop the life force. You can't dam it up forever. It's too powerful. So planetary forces, individual forces. This section talks again about awareness. So I go to Patrick Lecture 127, which talks about awareness as the second state of 4. And it's the first state we know what's going on because it's awareness, and the state before that is lack of awareness. So to be aware does not mean you have to do whatever comes into your mind. It means you're aware of what comes into your mind. Instead of it poisoning you in small places where you don't even realize it, instead of hatred bubbling up but staying slightly under your conscious realization, hate surfaces and you feel hate. Then and only then can you decide to do something about that. When you can't feel it and you don't know it's there, you cannot make a conscious choice. You don't have the materials, you don't have the awareness. The dilemma is that awareness is the longest stage and it is the most painful because simple awareness does not bring the understanding and knowing that can follow. And the last section of this, besides talking about every person matching the planetary growth, is that humans share a common reality. Because we share a common reality, meaning if you're watching this, you're watching it on some kind of electronic screen. You might have a keyboard of some kind. You might have a video screen. You have cords and power connections, and we run into similar problems and have to solve them in similar ways. We deal with a similar reality. We are all playing with the same limitations. It is difficult for human beings to see beyond what we can see. It is difficult to imagine a world radically different than we live in. To imagine it, we are going to project ourselves, and so that's not exactly a fully unknown existence. If it's completely unknown, it's baffling to us. So there's a middle ground. Just like there's unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, conscious, there's a middle ground of being able to visualize a different reality, even though we're doing that with the human mind. All humans are going to be imagining this reality with similar limitations, so that we share an illusion that something is real when it is not, to a similar degree. I can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. It does mean I can't see it. And like lack of awareness, if I can't see it, it is difficult for me to work on. So it takes a lot of humility to take partial understanding and work with it as best you can. And to remain humble so that as you get more information, you change your hypothesis. Now, the metaphor that I use for this, my personal hobby interest, is astrophysics. I am fascinated by how much we learn on a daily basis with the new equipment that we have. And how people who study this, who have studied this for decades, their entire lifetime, have to keep throwing out their ideas and taking the new information and reformulating. I think this is a very powerful metaphor. for what living a spiritual life may feel like. It's not pure bliss. It's not, oh, I got it, I understand it, we're done. It would be like seeing a new world every day, getting so much new information that you had to rethink everything. It's a huge amount of work. Now, there's pleasure in it, and there's bliss, and there can be excitement and an explosion of creative effort. It's also work. So we imagine the future as being blissful and done without naming it that. And I feel it's important to identify that as the equivalent of a fairy tale, they lived happily ever after. It's okay for kids. Adults need to see a little bit further, and they have to be on the ground day to day. They can't just write off the rest of their lives with, I had this one event and now everything's fine. This is part of growth and development. So that's my summary. I hope that's not discouraging. The lecture is very powerful. I'm giving it 5 weeks this month. Please take a look, see what you think. Patrick Lecture 227, The Change from Outer to Inner Law in the New Age. Thanks for listening.